BRRRR stands for something along the lines of buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. I want to talk about the pros and cons of BRRRR, how you can make your first BRRRR happen, and steps in the process that you may not be thinking about. Let's say you go out into the world and you find we'll say a rental house, and you buy this rental house for $100,000 and it's at a discount. You're going to put $20,000 into this. Let's say you're going to paint the outside. You're going to go in, you're going to paint the kitchen cabinets, put in a new countertop, do some new floorings, and paint the inside. So you've done what we call, or what I've heard it called, is you're putting lipstick on the pig. You really didn't change the property in any way. All you did is you went in and you made it look better, which isn't a bad thing. But let's say you do that. You buy it for $100,000, you put $20,000 into it, you're all in for $120,000, and now the property is worth $200,000. Okay, now we're going to talk about, if you don't have that, how can you finance that? So you have profited $80,000 on paper, but let's say that was all your cash and you can't really go on to scale your portfolio. So what do? You go to a bank and you say, hey, Mr. Banker, I want to get a loan for this property. I want to get all my money back out, and I want to go and I want to take that cash and I want to do another project. It's a great strategy. You're going to go to the bank and they're going to say, hey, listen, great news. We'll give you 80% of the value. Then they're going to give you $160,000. You're going to go, you're going to do some paperwork. They're going to get an appraisal on the property. Hopefully you get a 30-year loan on this residential property. That's how it works out. You get the cash back, and actually you put $120,000 in. So you made $40,000 of cash, what we call on paper. You don't have cash. You really don't have access to that money unless you sell the property. Now, the cool thing is you made that $40,000 of cash and the extra $40,000 on paper money completely tax-free. You made that money, it adds to your net worth, and you can spend that extra $40,000 of cash that looks like profit in your bank account. You can spend that however you want, and you're not going to get taxed on it because it's debt. You don't incur any sort of tax bill until you sell the property. So if you're still holding the property, then guess what? A lot of cool things happen. As long as you're renting the property out at a reasonable rate compared to what your debt and your expenses are, you can cash flow. You can use the rent from that to pay your debt down, the $160,000 you borrowed. The property value can continue to go up through time, add to your net worth, potentially be refinanced later on down the road, but you still haven't paid any taxes. So let's talk about some of the downfalls of doing this. Number one, guys, is you probably aren't buying these houses in cash. I know some people that do, and that's awesome, but most people out there, most new investors watching this video, don't have $120,000 to put down all cash, or even if you do, you might realize, hey, this isn't the smartest use of my money, because what I could do instead, if I've got a $120,000 project, I could go to the bank, I could borrow $80,000 to buy it and only put $40,000 in and do this 3 at a time. So I could be working on 3 BRRRRs at a time. That's what some investors would do, and that's how you start to scale using debt. So let's talk about the math behind actually doing this. Let me pull up my best friend, Excel. I'm gonna share with you guys and gals my screen here. So let's dive into this right here. If we have a purchase for $100,000, okay, let me make this look like dollars. Wrong way. Does anybody ever get that right on the first one? Purchase, rehab is $20,000. So total cost is the sum of these two. Okay, and then we're gonna say bank loan 1, and we're gonna do 80%, let's see, 0.8 times the purchase price, okay? And then so we'll say down payment, okay, is equal to the total cost minus bank loan 1, $40,000. Everybody make sense? Following along with me? So the goal here is, how do we get our $40,000 back, if not more? Again, if after the renovation is done, we have a value of $200,000, right? That's too many zeros. If the value is $200,000 and we can pull out, we'll call this our refinanceable amount. I think I spelled that right. Refinanceable amount, we'll do 80%, okay, of this value. So this times 80% is $160,000. Okay, so if we have this situation right here, then our cash proceeds is going to be equal to our refinanceable amount, the amount we get out, minus our bank loan number one. So in this scenario where we did use leverage, we put in $40,000 and we doubled that money to $80,000. Plus we also still have equity in the property, okay, of the value minus the refinanceable amount. So we got $80,000 back. We put $40,000 in, we got $80,000 back, and we still have another $40,000 in the property. Sounds pretty great, right? Yes, absolutely. Let's look at the P&L on this property. So let's say that we could rent this property for, let's say $2,000 a month. So $24,000 a year. And let me go ahead and do this. $24,000 a year. And let's say our expenses, let's say they run 50%, okay? So times 0.5. Okay, so expenses are $12,000. That's property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, property management, all that good stuff, okay? That gives us an NOI, net operating income on this property, of $24,000 minus $12,000 is $12,000. Now we have to pay our debt service, our mortgage payments, DS, debt service, right? So let's figure out how much is this going to be? Well, let's see here. Here's how you can do this in Excel, guys. You could do a mortgage calculator. You could do whatever you want. Here's how you can do it. R stands for rate. So let's say you got this at 5%. And I need to change this to a percentage. Okay, and this is going to be number of years. So we're going to change this to number, and present value. We actually don't need that. That's going to be above. The present value is going to be the amount we borrow, right? So really, if we borrow negative 120,000 for this, and this is going to be number is going to come out to number of years. So we're going to say 30 years here. Okay, now if we want to figure out what our payment is, you can use this formula. Equals payment, open parentheses, rate, number of periods, which is N, and present value. And it's going to tell us what our annual mortgage payments come out to, $7,806. That's on the first mortgage. If we were to look here, let me get this right. If we were to look here at the second one, then the present value is actually going to be I6 up here, $160,000. My phone's buzzing. One second. $160,000. So after we refinance, our payments are going to go up, right? Our payments are going to go up because we have borrowed more money. Now, a key factor here, guys, is that we've borrowed more money at the same terms. If we had done this in a rising interest rate environment, then what we're going to find is that maybe we could borrow more money and maybe our plans get ruined by the lack of DSCR, which I will tell you about in just a second. If you want to deep dive into this, I also have a video for you. I'll link it here in just a second. Well, let's say our rates rose to 7%. Wow, now our payments went up a lot, even though we got the same amount of money out. And this brings me to one of the big drawbacks about BRRRR is your business plan. If you're not comfortable with leaving money in the property, your business plan is contingent upon what the debt markets do, where interest rates go, how available to debt you are. And what I see a lot of people really messing up, and please write this down, this is a big lesson. Do not make your purchase loan right here, don't make that a short-term loan. A lot of people get into hard money loans thinking that, oh, it's no problem, I'm gonna add value, I'll refinance in 12 months. Guys, you can get crushed by a changing rate environment where you think that you're going to refinance and you can't in a profitable format. Because what's important over here, this is our debt service. Again, if we're going to be paying, if we do this as a negative, if we're going to pay $10,408 a year and we have cash flow, that would be this plus this, it'd be $1,592 a year of cash flow. Really thin margins. I'm not going to say anything about that right now. You got your money out, your cash flow, and that's cool. But again, all we have to do if we go into a rising interest rate environment, that could pretty quickly become negative cash flow, meaning what we thought was going to be a profitable business plan and strategy now became a liability to us because we cannot finance this, get out of our first loan into our second long-term loan. We can't do that in a profitable way. And a big thing that we're going to look at here is called DSCR, debt service coverage ratio. Okay, and effectively what debt service coverage ratio is, guys, is it pretty much says how many times can our NOI pay for our debt service. That's all it's saying. How many times can our NOI pay for our debt service? So all we have to do is we're going to take our debt service and we're going to divide it by our NOI. And what this tells me right here, let's actually make this a number. Oops, I might have it wrong. In 7, what this is going to tell us, I had my numerator and denominator wrong. What this is going to tell us is how many times can our NOI pay for our debt service. And what this 1.15 tells us is that through the course of the year, for every $1 of debt service that I have $1.15 of NOI. I have $1.15 of net income that is available to pay for that debt service. So generally, a healthy number that banks are going to look for is really a minimum of 1.15. But what I've seen more particularly recently is that we're looking at 1.25, 1.3, even 1.35. So what that tells me is that I need to know after I refinance, I need to know what is my debt service coverage ratio going to be, because that's going to be contingent, especially in the rental property world, if I can get a loan or not. Now, if you're doing this on a primary residence, then sometimes banks will look at your personal income, and instead of looking at the DSCR of the property income, they'll effectively replace this NOI with your personal salary and income and then all of your debt, okay? So either way, you need to make sure that you're going to have the ability to meet the bank's thresholds on the back end of doing the BRRRR, because if you don't, then the BRRRR is not going to be available. If you get yourself into a short-term loan, you're going to be what they call royally screwed. And if you do, then you can operate this successfully. But what I would tell you is I would always analyze the refinance rate at a higher interest rate. It's going to be super critical to you that you make sure the numbers work out even when interest rates rise. Now here's, whenever we get at 1 or below 1, that means that we're cash flow negative. A below 1.0 DSCR means you are in a cash flow negative property, which is not a good thing. So this is my thoughts and kind of just like initial reads on how to look at a BRRRR. The great thing about BRRRR, guys, is that it's infinitely scalable. As long as you can continue to produce value in properties, as long as you can continue to raise rents and NOIs that will cover your refinance debt service, it's great. And all it is a financing game. But if you're going to play a financing game, you need to be a financing pro. Dave Ramsey tells us that all debt is bad. I don't necessarily agree with that, but this debt can get you in trouble if you haven't worked through the whole process and what we'll call, the exit plan. Not that I think you always need to be thinking about an exit plan, but you need to be thinking about a capitalization plan. How am I going to continue to finance these properties in a cash flow positive way that continues to allow me to scale? If you have any questions about BRRRR, drop me a comment below. And if you want to learn more about the ins and outs of how real estate investing, rental properties, and commercial real estate works, grab either of these books absolutely free on this channel and link below. In the meantime, be great. I'll see you in the next video and let me know if I can do anything for you.